Okay, so today I'm gonna be making these hourglass pens, and I'm gonna be doing a black and either titanium or gunmetal color. So these have some weight to them, but these are some nice pens. I think some of like one of the most unique pens I've ever made. Well, like kit wise, but they're pretty cool. And the cool thing about these is that they have a 2-minute timer, so the sand on the inside is really fine if you look at it, and the glass, or the part that's holding the actual sand, is glass. So that's what's pretty cool, having a pen with glass in it. So this is how I start them off. I have my white acrylic. I'll just call it white acrylic. So I have the white acrylic. So this acrylic is usually a lot like harder and brittle kind of at the same time, and it's really powdery and nasty, and it doesn't smell too good. So what I do is I align my brass tube to the piece of acrylic, mark it off and everything, and usually when I mark them, I'll leave like a millimeter or two off the back so that I have extra space. Then I begin cutting it. When you cut it, you want to cut it as straight as possible so that you don't mess it up, or like if you cut it angled, that might mess it up. And then I have my blue ivory acrylic. So this acrylic is more of a plasticky type, so this is like acrylic is more easier to work with than the white acrylic. So I repeat the process. I mark it down and leave about a millimeter or two on the back so that I have excess. And as you see, I mark it and then I'll like complete the straight line. Usually I do that because I guess I've gotten good at making straight lines, like something like that. And I repeat the process, cut it short as possible, and yeah. So right here I have my letter O drill bit. I think it's called a ballpoint because the tip of it, the way it's shaped. So ballpoint is the centerpiece, like the very center of it, is a bit longer than the outside. So yeah, and that drill bit is like really sharp. So like anytime I'm working with this drill bit, I'm careful, or like any of the drill bits that I buy to use to make pens, because they're a lot sharper. So with this one, what I have to do is I have to adjust the plate on the drill press, and then right now I'm adjusting the chuck to this drill bit, and I'm using the chuck key to tighten it. It's important to tighten the chuck, because if not, the chuck is what holds the drill bit. If you don't tighten it, then it'll slip out and it's not good. So with this drill bit, I have to be more careful and everything because it's a lot longer and I don't want to hit the base. And as you see, when I'm drilling, I'm cleaning it off, and I do that because if debris gets inside of there, it can mess it up, or it can heat it up and then it can break. So you want to go real slow, like go a little bit and then pull it out, and go and repeatedly. So now that you see both are fully drilled through, and now it's time to insert the tubes to these. So what I do, or let me explain. So these, usually I would sand these, but these are pre-sanded, so that helps. And yeah, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna insert these tubes into the pieces of acrylic. So what I do is I have my crazy glue in one hand and I have a tube in the other. So what I do is I'll rotate it and apply glue at the same time. Then I insert the tube into the acrylic, and while I'm inserting it, I'll be twisting it so that it spreads glue on the inside of the piece of acrylic, and it makes it have more like contact surface for the glue, and that helps it from falling out or breaking, or like any type of effects on it like in the future. And I repeat the process with the other piece of acrylic and tube as well. So as you can see right here, I tap it in with the other piece of acrylic, and I do it fast because if not, it will get stuck, and then that's not good. And I've done that a few times where it gets stuck and it's not too fun to mess with. So now right here I have my my cutter head that's adaptable to most of the bigger pens, and I have the letter O reamer. So the reamer is what cuts, or what goes into the inside, so that part that goes inside the pen, that cleans out the inside. So if there's crazy glue on the inside, it cleans it out. The cutter head is what's actually like taking off some of the acrylic. So the acrylic is, or the parts that it's cutting around on the top, and it makes it flush with the actual tube. So as you see here, when it goes down, it starts making like you see the acrylic, it starts gathering on there. So the cutter head is the fat part on top of the drill bit. So yeah, so that's what that does. And you have to repeat this process. Usually when I make other pens, I'll do it 4 times, but since this one's only just one piece, I do it twice. But I'm actually gonna do it 4 times because I have another pen that I'm making at the same time. I'm making 2 of these. So I don't know if you can really see it, but it had like a little circle. So that helps when you put in the bushings on the actual pen and get them ready. So I repeat the process. When you do this, you don't want to go too fast or anything, and you want to be careful with it, because if you go too far, you can mess up the actual tube on the inside, and then you can make it a little too short, and that affects the way the pen is made or the assembly of it. Okay, so now I'm gonna be putting them onto the actual lead. So these are the Hourglass bushings that I'm gonna be using for this pen, and these bushings are made especially for this pen. Sorry if my voice sounds kind of like nasty. I have allergies, so it's like, yeah, it's fun but not fun. So first I'm gonna be putting the white one on there, and yeah, let's get started. So what I have to do first is I have to take off, or I took them off, but should have left them on there. So I have to put on the actual pieces, like the bushings for the Hourglass pen. Then I add some extra bushings on there. So since these are smaller, I have to get extra bushings. So I have extra bushings there with my stuff because it's good to have them. Also, like after being used for so long, you cut away at them and different stuff. So once it's tightened, it's ready to go. So yeah, now that it's tightened, then I'll start cutting into it. Okay, so some of the clips are kind of mixed up, but yeah, so with the blue one, I accidentally forgot to record like the actual process that I was doing it in, and then when I remembered to record, I was just like, bruh. So yeah, but that was pretty cool. I made it the same shape as like the actual Hourglass type deal. If you look at it, once I do like a close-up on it and all that, you'll see what I'm talking about. So then, yeah, so like here's a little overview of it. If you look at the top and then look at the bottom, it's the same shape. So with this white one, it's a lot dustier and it makes more of a mess. So with this one, when you're making it, what sucks about it is that the acrylic tends to stick on you, so you like it gets annoying. It's like that one piece of plastic when you're eating something and it gets stuck to you, and you like try and take it off, and then it gets stuck and all that fun stuff. So yeah, so then I slowly start shaping this one, and this acrylic, it's a lot more brittle than the other acrylic that I did, that blue ivory. So this one, it's a lot, like it's soft, but at the same time it's brittle. So you have to be more careful with it. You have to work it a lot slower, and yeah. And this one's a lot powdery, a lot more powdery. Like it has more dust, I guess, if you know what I'm saying. And then also when you're doing this type, you have to go slower than the other one. And then you saw how I marked it out with the Sharpie. So I had asked like my sister like how big she wanted it, or like how thick, and the different like sizes on it. So I'm finally done with it. Now I'm gonna polish it. So if you can see in the background how it is all dusty and full of stuff, it's because of the acrylic. So now usually what I do is I'll go over it with that sponge sanding block or whatever it's called. And then I use my micro mesh pads to finish it up. So after the micro mesh, what I usually do is I'll add wax to it, as you see in a few seconds. So once I add that wax, it gives it like a protective coat. It looks kind of weird right there because it's a lot of wax that's stacked up onto it. And then after this, I buff it out with a little Dremel that I have with a buffing wheel. So I'll turn on the lathe and then I buff it out, and it gives it a shinier look and makes it feel better, I guess, something like that. So yeah, and then I'll usually after I do this, then I go over it with a little towel, make sure that there's no extra like wax on there or anything. So now it's done, and I'm gonna assemble this one. So at the time I didn't have like the actual tool to assemble these pens, so I would just use a clamp. It was the same process, but it was kind of scary because it didn't hold them too straight, so sometimes it would get a little lopsided. So yeah, the cool thing about this one is it just slides into, the tip of it just slides in, and then you just crimp it and you make sure that it goes in all the way. So when you crimp it, you want to make sure that it goes all the way down to the very bottom. So that's done. So now you put that to a side, or after that you put in the actual ink cartridge. So these have a little protective like tip on it, and then these ink cartridges are kind of weird because they are different compared to the other ink cartridges. And then that little black piece you screw it onto the actual like hourglass part and you put it on there. So then afterwards you just slide that on there and it's good to go. So that little ink cartridge is kind of weird because it has a Phillips tip on the end, so you have to use a screwdriver to put it on. Well, you can put it on with your fingers, but it won't go in all the way. As if you do it with the screwdriver, it would go in all the way. So there's me with the screwdriver. And you see how it went a lot further into the pen. So these ink cartridges are a lot smaller than the other ones that I'm used to. So now the pen is fully done and assembled. So yeah, and that's the outcome of it. So it's pretty cool. So yeah, and the colors were chosen by my sister, so she has like a great taste in colors and all this type of stuff. So yeah, and then there's a little hourglass and all that. So I was surprised at how good these came out, or like the way they looked. Like I would see them around and stuff, and I was like, oh, those look pretty cool. And then I finally got the chance to make one. I made a few of them already. I think I've made like 4 of them. So yeah, I made this one. And then here's another little clip of another one that I made for my sister. So this one's gold with blue. It's the same type of material as that white acrylic that I did. So this one is another one that I was saying that they have a different color. So they have, I think, 4 or 5. So like gold, chrome, black, silver, and titanium. They have a few. So